Fan favorite Dillon Tatum, he enters the portal. Just how big of a loss is this for our Michigan State Spartans?
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe. Comment below your thoughts on the Dillon Tatum departure because, well, it's been a few sleepy days since the spring portal has reopened. Okay, this one came to be a little bit of a surprise. We thought that all the fireworks were wrapped up in day one when Anthony Jones was the biggest name to leave to the portal, but nope, right after the weekend and after Michigan State wraps up their spring practice cycle, it is fan favorite Dillon Tatum, and a guy that really just feels like he's been here forever. Obviously came here under the Mel Tucker era. That was a really hotly contested recruiting battle against Michigan that Tucker won, which, by the way, Dillon Tatum did thank Mel Tucker for recruiting him in the first place. Also thank Jonathan Smith. This man has been through it all, and that is including, unfortunately, some pretty devastating injuries. We all remember the one last year that ended his season after just 21 snaps. So, yes, a guy that was a captain in a sort of ways, a guy that was really here for a lot. He is in the transfer portal, and it's not lost with me. Let's just make this about ourselves really quick, if you guys don't mind. Not lost with me that this could be a Locked On Spartans jinx record as far as, like, quickest a guy has left a team after we just talked glowingly about him. We had a podcast episode come out 5 a.m., and part of that podcast episode was talking about, hey, which injured guy can have a really strong bounce-back season? And 4 hours later, after we talked about how Dillon Tatum could be set for a really big bounce-back year, 4 hours after that airs, hey, he's in the portal. So that's a good old Locked On Spartans jinx, just at work right there. Okay, we're not going to get too hung up on that. But guys, the instant reaction when you saw this flash across Twitter with his announcement, well, mine was surprise, first and foremost. And then the other one was, oh my God, here we go again. They're losing another key player in the spring portal cycle. When does this not happen for Michigan State fans? It was Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow, Jaden Mangum. It's also been Peyton Thorne, Keon Coleman. It has been a snake-bitten time of year in the spring portal cycle for us Michigan State fans. But then I start talking to people who know things that go inside of, well, the halls and walls of the football building, the Tom Izzo football building, I should say. And the read on this is maybe a little different than what we painted on yesterday's show. Is that like, hey, you know what? He's going to be a starter. Or if not, he's going to be one of these first guys off the bench. He's going to be a high-impact player because that's just what we've known from this former four-star kid. After a few conversations, the read on it right now is that Dillon Tatum wasn't going to start at either safety positions. Nikai, Martinez, Malik, Spencer appear to be the guys that have left this spring cycle with those starting jobs. And so they tried him out at the nickel position. Okay, that didn't necessarily seem like a clear-cut favored to win that battle against Ade Wiley is the name that I kept hearing being thrown out. So seems to be that, okay, he's going to be a backup, maybe even third string. Hard to tell what's true, what's not true, but the consensus is that, okay, he wasn't going to be starting this season. Now, what confirms this? What confirms that maybe they still aren't happy with what they have as far as depth pieces go in the secondary? It's what we've been talking about all last week. Michigan State is going to try to target secondary players in the spring cycle. So, yes, they're fine with their starters, but they do need some more depth pieces there. And what else confirms that maybe Michigan State isn't losing like this, surefire starter? And look, it pains me to talk about it this way because I like Dillon Tatum a lot. I mean, obviously a great kid by all accounts, really strong player, really fell into some unfortunate circumstances. And maybe this is also a reason why that maybe the starting role just wasn't there to start this fall cycle coming up in a few months here, is that maybe it was hard to come back from this injury. But I also think that, this tweet from Darian Harris, who is, of course, part of the athletic department, he knows what's going on in the football building. He tweeted this out. It was, have to put an end to this idea that every time a player enters the portal, it's for the exact same reason. Plenty of examples of portal entries for the wrong reasons. There's also times where it mutually makes sense. Treat every situation individually. So, Naturally, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh my God, he's leaving for a bigger program, a more high-paying bag. Oh, this is terrible. What's going on here? I don't think Darian tweets all that out, especially the line. There's also times where it mutually makes sense just for no reason, right? Like, I don't think he's going to be tweeting that out. If you want to hop back in the time machine last year when Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow left to go pursue those bigger opportunities, I think this was truly a mutual parting of ways between Michigan State and Dillon Tatum, because I think a lot of things are true here. I think we're going to thread a very fine needle right now, because the first truth that, okay, just like I've said, it appears that, Tatum wasn't looking at having that starting role going into the season, at least. And, okay, truth number two, like, I think there is a team out there. Granted, maybe it's another Power 4 school. Maybe it's at a lower level. Who's to say? That will enjoy his services and use him more than MSU is planning on this upcoming fall. And the third thing that I think is true, like, I think it is still a bummer to lose him, because, yes, he is what the staff was maybe hoping he'd be, a strong depth piece, a guy that's a Swiss Army knife. He could play some corner. He could play that nickel position. He could play safety position. But I also think it's true that Dillon Tatum doesn't view him as just a depth piece somewhere. And who could blame the kid? Coming out of high school, former 4-star, maybe the injury set him back a little bit. Hopefully he could find his footing at his next spot. But I am really curious to see where this is all going to net out for Dillon Tatum, because I'll have my eye very close to what offers he is going to get out there. Will it be other high Power 4 schools? Will it be like an SEC juggernaut? I truly don't know where it's going to net out for Dillon Tatum. And this is the only way that it could really blow up in Michigan State's face. Like, yes, I would like to have Dillon Tatum around as a depth piece. He wants greener pastures. That's fine. Mutual parting of ways. The only way that this could really backfire in MSU here, and unfortunately we don't get the answer until we hop into the future, is like if he does go to another Power 4 school and not just, carves out a starting role there, but also has a real productive season for whoever he's going to land at next. Because it's not like, with all due respect, like the guys that he couldn't beat out are all first team Big Ten players. Like, no, hopefully, this was a battle he could have won. He didn't. If he goes out somewhere else and then does ball out for that other team, going to start to have questions about the evaluation of the staff's own players, if they were going to, knock him back on the depth chart a few pegs to the point where he felt like he should leave for different opportunities. But yeah, that's where I stand on it right now. Again, we did talk about how he was potentially going to have a big role in yesterday's episode. Never assume anything in life, apparently, because now that I've actually had the conversations of, hey, what is actually going on here? Yeah, mutual parting of ways. Whether you want to believe that or not, that's the best intel I got for you guys right now. And again, after looking at what they're trying to do in the transfer portal, what you're hearing both on and off the record, I think it meets the eye right here. So now what? Now what at this secondary situation? Is the depth now just completely shot at the safety, nickel, corners? Like, no. So safety, like we said, you got Nikai, Martinez, you have Malik Spencer as your starters. Right behind them, Justin Denson, Armarion Smith. The nickel, Ade Wiley, Darius Snow. I know he profiles more as a linebacker, but I do wonder if he'll get some nickel reps there. And the cornerback, you got your transfer portal haul of Nijay Burt, Joshua Eaton, who we're hearing good things about in the portal. I'm sorry, in the spring practice sessions, by the way. Malcolm Bell, Chance Rucker. So it's all names but certainly there can be depth added there, and there will be someone visiting campus. Actually, he's already on campus right now, should the reports be correct, that we'll get to here in the next segment. But really quick, that wasn't the only transfer portal entry today. Carter Enyard, redshirt freshman, he leaves the program. Not much impact last year, but just to, go down the linebacker room really quick. Starting at your weak side linebacker, your will, that would presumably be Wayne Matthews. Middle linebacker taking over for Cal Halliday, I would assume that's Jordan Hall. And then strong side linebacker, any one of Marcellus Pulliam, Samaj Bridgman, Ice Moa, who they got from BYU. And then Brady Pretzloff, the sophomore coming back next year. So, hey, I think it's a more athletic linebacker room than it was last year. I've been hearing good things about the linebacker room as far as what's been going on at spring practice and the scrimmages. So just by attrition, yes, Carter Enyard also enters the portal. We're going to get into who these visitors are. I was just alluding to here in a hot second, but first need to talk all your ears off about Game Time. That's right, the greatest ticketing app in the land. And if you want to catch this NBA playoff action going on at Little Caesars Arena, well, yeah, find those tickets over at Game Time. Now, let's say you want to go to Game 4, a few days out, and you don't know if you can save money. Well, I'll cut to the chase. You can. With Game Time's flash deals, you can find great seats in great locations for a great price for all you planners out there. Or let's say you are one of the spontaneous folks out there. You're going to walk up to Little Caesars Arena with no tickets in your pocket, no tickets on your phone. But guess what? Still not too late to save money with Game Time, because up to tip-off, the last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off your tickets. It is the greatest app out there, guys. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, so we have some spring transfer portal visitors right now on Michigan State's campus. And just to refresh everyone's memory about the portal, it is open until this Friday. Now, what that means is that you have to have your name entered into the portal by Friday night. Now, of course, you don't have to find your next destination until kickoff of the following season. There's no deadline of when you can join your next team. But yes, if you want to go swim in those waters, name's got to be in the portal by Friday. Of course, we'll keep everyone updated should more Spartans defect from the program in the meantime. But guys, we already do have visitors on campus. And we're going to start in that defensive secondary position with Gavin Edwards. Now, this gentleman, he is a safety. He has also visited or visiting Iowa and Maryland. So it's going to be a Big Ten recruiting battle for the legend of Austin Peay, or Austin Peay. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Please don't get mad at me. But he was at Austin Peay for one spring practice cycle. That's right. He never actually played a game for the Governors. Pretty sure that's their nickname, the Governors. He actually was a transfer from Division II North Greenville. So that's where he played prior to getting up to Division I. Now, funny enough, or maybe you don't think it's funny, maybe you're just sick of the world of transfer portal and college football the way it is. I thought it was pretty funny that at North Greenville, he actually tackled who is now Michigan State receiver Rodney Bullard when North Greenville played against Rodney Bullard's Valdosta State, whatever the Valdosta State team is, the Vipers, the Vacuums, whatever starts with a V, I don't know. But anyway, hey, you know what? Rivalry renewed inside the halls and the walls of the Tom Izzo football building should Gavin Edwards transfer to Michigan State. Anyway, when he was at North Greenville, 40 tackles, 6 pass breakups as a redshirt sophomore, so he would have 3 years of eligibility. He played, there's not a lot of tape out there of North Greenville. I tried my best. He did have some practice tape when he was at Austin Peay that he did put on his Twitter profile. A little bit of free safety, a little bit of box safety. So this is a guy that could come in here, be versatile, be another body in that secondary room. So that's where we're at right now. I got to say, Iowa, a little bit more hard for Gavin to get playing time, I would imagine. I was reading up on a few Hawkeye forums, some message boards. Seems to be like they're too deep in the secondary is more set in place than it is Michigan State and Maryland. So it could be a Spartans versus Terrapins battle. However, guy wants to go play for Phil Parker over at Iowa. That's not a recruiting battle you can sneeze over. So the other visitor that we have, guys, we talked a little bit about him last week. Cam Williams from Georgia State. Now, this guy is not a secondary player. He plays defensive end or edge, whatever you want to call it. He's also visiting Purdue and Kansas. He was a spot starter for Georgia State, and he had 12 pressures, 1 sack last year. This isn't going to be a guy that's going to, come in and be first team all Big Ten. Like, this is going to be another guy that would be a depth piece in a room. As we all know, I will bemoan this again, that could use as much depth as possible, because what's the next best thing after quality? Well, it's quantity, because this room last year was not quality. As far as you guys all know, it was a 2-month stretch without a single sack. And, well, here's what we got right now. They already got David Santiago out of the portal at this defensive end / rush edge position. Anelu Lafayette, guy from Wisconsin who has yet to play, but former 4-star kid out of the great state of Hawaii. Maybe you got some juice with him. And I use the word juice because that is what Chad Will has categorized his playing style as so far this spring. You also have Jalen Thompson, guy that really needs to have a big year as a junior, as a former 4-star. Tyler Gillison, Quindarius Dunnigan, who has slimmed down and is apparently turning a little bit of heads at spring practice. We also said that last year. Hopefully it's, being a little bit lighter on his feet this year will bump him up a little bit. Kike Burnett, redshirt freshman, and then James Schott, who really hasn't had much opportunities here at Michigan State in his time. So just keep on throwing guys into this position group until you find one that works. I don't care if it's Cam Williams from Georgia State. I don't care if it's guys that are already here. Just load this room up with as many names as humanly possible, and let's just find some dogs somewhere. We cannot let our secondary out to dry for 13 seconds at a time because no one is getting home to the quarterback. stating the obvious here. One other piece of news here that happened before the weekend. Meet the Spartans. Hey, it's coming back in our lives, guys. This was a long-standing tradition before the season started, and then, pooh, COVID hit. And that squashed that big time. So, hey, it's coming back Thursday, August 21st. More details are going to come out closer to the date, but this is something that I was damn near crying about when they canceled the spring game. When they, I did agree with moving the home game to Ford Field to end the season, but that's not a nice way to treat the Lansing area folk, taking that home game away from them and also taking the spring game away, a nice free event to really get to know the team, especially in these times when the roster is changing by the minute. Let's just get some energy out of this fan base. Let's get these guys knowing who they're even watching in the fall. And the cries have been heard. They are bringing back Meet the Spartans. Now, if you don't know what that is, set up a bunch of tables for pictures, autographs. It was a really fun event. I went to a few back in the day, so I'm glad to see that coming back, just for the Lansing area Spartan fans, anyone that wants to travel in for it, anyone, most importantly, wants to get familiar with who they're actually going to be cheering on this fall. Again, never has it been harder to keep track of who on earth is even on my team. We'll Meet the Spartans is going to help that. Guys, we're going to go swimming in the mailbag here in a hot segment, but first we need to talk everyone's ears off about Prize Picks. That's right, your leader in daily fantasy sports. Now, baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on all that action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, first inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. Like this week, keeping it simple, we're going with the big names. We're going to pick Aaron Judge more than 1 home run, Shohei Ohtani more than 1 stolen base. It is that easy. You can make your lineups in as little as 60 seconds. And when you win, guys, the payout is quick, safe, secure. They treat you right over at Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, back into the mailbag here. There's 2 ways to reach the mailbag, as you guys probably know by now. Sheehan_sports on Twitter. Or if you want to do it the old-fashioned email way, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Now, the first question we're going to get to, I expect the O-line to be improved, but will it be running back by committee, or is anyone standing out at this point? Just to start with the offensive line really quick, there is some reason to be cautiously optimistic. I think that's how I want to word it this offseason, because we haven't seen solid offensive line play here in East Lansing. I'm starting to really remember truly when that was. But we've also had reason for optimism in the last few off seasons. Now, this year's flavor of optimism comes from, the blessing within the curse of last year of immediately you got, your first starting right guard, and then the guy that was starting after he got hurt, going down immediately to start the season. There was a lot of moving parts on the offensive line thanks to injuries. Woohoo! But now, instead of last season, where you were going into it with just one backup with any college experience, Dallas Fincher was the only guy that had any college experience. Now, after you're starting 5 offensive linemen, now you got 6, or maybe it's even 7 guys behind them with college experience. So you are going in just, if not for nothing else, experience. And you could see it last year. The new guys, whether they were just true freshmen or guys that really didn't have any snaps under their belt, it certainly looked like that at times. So I'm not defiantly saying that it's for sure going to be better than last year. I do really love the pickups that they got in Matt Golden, who was great in the run game at Wake Forest, and also Connor Moore from Montana State. I do love what they got with those 2 guys with all the returners. But I just I do want to pump the brakes and just be cautiously barely optimistic and just try really hard not to fall in the same offseason trap that I always do, which is just falling in love with the team because, hey, everyone's undefeated in the summer. But no, we're going to just try to just keep the line in the cage there. Now, as far as will it be running back by committee, what have I been hearing so far? It's not a fun answer. And not in the sense that they're all doing bad. It's just not fun that I haven't been able to crack, who truly is the starter in this room. The reason the answer I keep hearing is that it is a 3 headed race going into this one with Brandon Tulis, Nikai Frazier. Those guys were the freshmen last year. They each had 7 carries. And then Eli Tolliver, your transfer from Sacramento State. Now, the odd man, I guess, quote unquote, out right now is Jace Clarizio. But what we've been hearing about him is that he has been like athletic. Like there is a reason that, he was either rated as a high 3-star or 4-star, depending on what site that you looked at. There was a reason that Alabama wanted him. And at one point for about 48 hours, had his commitment before he was flipped back by Michigan State. It's just that as a freshman, or a guy that really should still be in high school if he didn't early enroll, is having just like, understandably so, tough time adjusting to the speed of the college game right now. So since the other 3 guys, more experience, that's what it's looking like right now. It's looking pretty balanced between those 3 guys. I'm sure some cream will rise to the top here in the fall. Someone's going to have just a little bit more of an edge going into that first game against Western Michigan, but that's what we're hearing right now. Now, that's not to say that Jace can't get himself back in the race here with a solid offseason, with a solid fall session, but yeah, that's just what we're hearing right now. Now, Jason also wrote in this question because, guys, it snuck up on me. Maybe it snuck up on you, but the NFL draft is this week, which is crazy. Anyway, so he writes in, if you're anything like me, you watch the NFL draft for the first round picks and see if any Spartans get called. I'm sorry, he said, or to see if any Spartans get called. He's not saying that he expects him to get picked in the first round. Just want to defend Jason there. I just couldn't read that properly. Anyway, do we have any players who have a chance on being drafted, or am I only watching the first round? Now, Michigan State, back in the days of the NFL Combine, which seems like it was 7 months ago at this point, they only had one guy invited, and that was kicker Jonathan Kim. Now, of course, just because you didn't get invited to the NFL Combine, it doesn't mean that you are just screwed and are just, a duck in the water when it comes to hearing your name selected at the NFL draft. Like just at the top of my head, Amir Speed, AJ Arcuri, those were guys that did not get invited to the NFL Combine, but by way of strong pro days, by way of good measurables, they were selected in their drafts on day 3. Now, I'm going to go to AJ Arcuri because that's just a great example of, how NFL teams love measurables. They love the numbers that come out at the combine, or in such case right now, pro days that go on campuses. AJ Arcuri's pro day, he had the highest vertical leap of any lineman that was at the NFL Combine. And if you took his bench press numbers, he would have been 2nd place amongst all the linemen at the Combine a few years ago. So NFL teams picked up on that, namely the Los Angeles Rams. They also loved his 6'7" frame. He just looks the part. The numbers look good. He heard his name called in the 7th round. There are 2 guys here from Michigan State that had really solid pro days a few weeks ago that I think can hear their name later on in the draft. I wouldn't expect, to hear their name on Thursday, maybe not Friday, but Saturday I would keep an eye on this. The first guy I'm going to go with, Luke Newman. So just here for 1 year, of course, the transfer from Holy Cross, but what NFL teams will like about him is that he played 3 positions at the Shrine Bowl, which I don't think, was just happenstance or coincidence. I think that he wanted to flex that he is a very versatile offensive lineman. He has experience playing tackle. He, of course, has experience playing on the interior like he did at Michigan State last year. But to pair that versatility is the fact that, his vertical jump would have been the 2nd best amongst all offensive linemen at the NFL Combine should he have been invited this year. Now, why does vertical jump ability matter for an offensive lineman? When are they ever asked to go up and get a jump ball in the end zone? Well, very rarely, but it does show that you have some semblance of athleticism. You have power in your legs, and he also has power in his chest too, because his bench press numbers would have been 4th best amongst offensive linemen at the NFL Combine. So if you're on the couch on Saturday just running errands, you have it on in the background, keep it tuned to Luke Newman's name, and also a guy that really flashed great numbers at MSU's pro day not too long ago, Nate Carter, who did not benefit from really anything here at Michigan State, unfortunately. The offensive line can never really get the run game off the ground in the last 2 years here at Michigan State. However, hopefully the scouts kept a close eye on him during Michigan State's pro day, because he had the 2nd fastest 40-yard dash time amongst running backs that were at the NFL Combine. Now, he also had the 2nd highest vertical jump. He had the 3rd best broad jump compared to guys that were at the NFL Combine. He was tied for 1st on the bench press too, so he has the athleticism, the power, the speed. It's a shame that we really couldn't see it this year in East Lansing because, he was getting popped the minute the ball was handed to him in the backfield more times than not. But look, what's going to make it hard for Nate Carter to hear his name is that there might be like 15, 18 guys that are in front of him as far as like the pecking order of NFL running back prospects go. But what's working for him, I went back and I looked at the last few years of drafts just to see how many running backs are actually taken. Last year was kind of a down year. I believe it was 14 running backs. 2 years ago, 22 running backs were called. I think in the middle of that, there was 18 or 19. But there's almost 24 running backs that will hear their name called. So maybe in that 7th round, maybe in the 6th round, you could hear Nate Carter's name because, yes, he does have the solid numbers to go along with, well, what NFL teams are looking for here. So really hoping for the best for Nate Carter. I mean, it's not like we hear, a lot of bad things about players, but that was certainly one kid that you never heard a bad word about right there. So really hoping that he latches onto an NFL team. He was actually on this show way back. I think it was going into – maybe it was even 2 seasons ago, but yeah, just a complete upstanding individual. So yeah, we're going to be rooting for all Spartans, of course, to hear their name in the NFL draft, but God, especially Nate Carter, just because he's been through some ups and some downs in his career, and he has just kept his chin up throughout all of that, guys. So go Nate, go Luke, go Jonathan Kim. Might be hard for him to have his name called. There's usually 2 or 3 kickers announced to every draft, but I'm sure that he will be invited to training camps should he not get picked in day 3. We all saw that that man has some power behind his legs, so hopefully it works out for Jonathan Kim too. Also, another friend of the show, a guy that was awesome to talk to after he kicked that game winner against Maryland. Oh my God, does that feel like it was 10 years ago or what, guys? All right, gang. You already know it. It's Locked On Spartans. We do this 5 days a week. We will be back tomorrow. The day after that, we're going to talk about everything in the transfer portal. We'll get some more basketball into the mix here. We'll see if there's any smoke that billows out of the chimney over this Darius Adams stuff that we talked a little bit about on yesterday's show. But yeah, guys, anything that breaks here in East Lansing, keep it tuned. Locked On Spartans. Also, do want to remind you, lockedonspartans@gmail.com if you have any questions you want to send our way. All right, guys, until next time, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.